Turn the car around now, Arthur. Now. My voice came out so sharp that my husband nearly collided with another vehicle on the interstate. My hands were trembling as I held the black duffel bag my son had asked me to carry. Inside it, hidden among innocent clothes, was something that would change our family forever. For 15 years, I helped my son financially. I sacrificed my savings, lent him money that never came back. But I never imagined he would be capable of this. But before I continue, make sure you are already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments, where are you watching this video from? We love to know how far our stories are reaching. My name is Margaret. I am 67 years old, and I always believed my greatest purpose in life was to help my family. My husband Arthur and I worked our whole lives to save for a comfortable retirement. Our only son, Michael, who is 42, had lost his job 6 years ago, and since then, we had been living in an endless cycle of loans that, deep down, I knew would never be repaid. It all started with small requests. Mom, can you help me with the rent this month? I promise I'll pay you back when I get my check. Soon came the water bills, the power bills, my grandson Leo's school supplies, the payments on the new car they had no business buying. Before I knew it, I was supporting his entire family. Michael's wife, Jessica, always treated me with a cold politeness. She never showed genuine gratitude for the sacrifices we were making. I saw the way she would roll her eyes when I mentioned we needed to be more careful with money, as if it were my obligation to keep bankrolling their lifestyle. 2 months ago, when they asked me for $5,000 to enroll Leo in a private school because he was being bullied at his public school, I finally set a limit. I can't do it anymore, son. Our retirement money is running out. We'll find another public school, talk to the principal about the bullying. The look Michael gave me in that moment was as if I had betrayed him, as if saying no after years of saying yes was an unforgivable crime. In the weeks that followed, their treatment of me changed drastically. They no longer let me see Leo on the weekends. When I called, they always had excuses. He's sleeping. We're just heading out. He has too much homework. Each refusal was like a stab to my heart. Then, 3 days ago, the surprise came. Michael called, sounding more cheerful than he had in months. Mom, we're thinking of taking a trip up to a friend's cabin in Wisconsin this weekend. We think it would be great for all of us to go so Leo can spend some time with his grandparents. What do you think? My heart leaped with joy. Finally, a chance to see my grandson, to fix things. Of course, son, we'd love to go. Great. Oh, and Mom, could you bring an extra bag for us? Our car is already packed with Leo's things. No problem, I replied without a second thought. On the morning of the trip, Michael and Jessica showed up with an ordinary black duffel bag. Nothing suspicious about it. We put it in our car and agreed that they would follow right behind us on Interstate 94 heading north. We had been on the road for almost 2 hours when my cell phone rang. It was Michael. Mom, the bag we gave you, you didn't open it, did you? The question sent an instant chill down my spine. There was something strange in his tone. No, why would I? No reason. It's just, I love you, Mom. You know that, right? In 40 years, my son had said those words to me maybe half a dozen times, and never like that, in that way, like a farewell. Michael, what's going on? Nothing, Mom. Just keep driving. We'll see you at the toll plaza. I hung up the phone with trembling hands. Something was terribly wrong. Arthur, pull over. What? We're on the highway, Margaret. Pull over now, I yelled. My husband swerved onto the shoulder. Michael and Jessica drove past us, honking their horn. I asked Arthur to turn on the hazard lights, as if we were having car trouble. With my heart pounding, I opened the black duffel bag. I moved aside a few t-shirts, a pair of children's pajamas, a Spider-Man pencil case I recognized as a gift I'd given Leo for his birthday. And then, at the bottom, I found packages wrapped in black plastic. My blood ran cold. Even at my age, I knew exactly what it was. It was illegal drugs, a lot of them. Oh my God, Arthur, I whispered, showing my husband. They were using us as mules. Michael and Jessica had planned to use their own parents as drug couriers, knowing that an elderly couple would probably not be searched as thoroughly at any police checkpoints on the highway. The destination was never a friend's cabin in Wisconsin. We were headed somewhere to deliver the merchandise. "Turn the car around now, Arthur, now," I screamed, feeling a mix of panic and rage I had never experienced before. My husband looked at me, his eyes wide, but he didn't question it. He made a U-turn at the first opportunity. As he did, I saw Michael's car in the rearview mirror, slowing down and starting to turn around as well. "What are we going to do?" Arthur asked, his voice trembling as much as his hands on the steering wheel. "Call the police," I replied, a lump forming in my throat. "Our own son was willing to send us to prison, Arthur. We have no choice." The moment Arthur dialed 911, I felt as if I were betraying my own blood. But what choice did we have? If we were caught with that amount, we would spend our final years in a prison cell. 911, "What is your emergency?" a female voice answered. Arthur looked at me, his face as pale as paper. "I need to report something. Our son put illegal drugs in our bag without our knowledge. We're on Interstate 94, at mile marker 107, heading back toward the city." As my husband spoke, I saw Michael's car approaching at high speed in the rearview mirror. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Arthur, they're right behind us." "Sir, you need to remain calm," said the voice on the other end of the line. "A patrol car has already been dispatched to your location. Do not confront the suspects. Continue driving normally if you can." "NSF." Michael's car pulled up alongside ours, and he gestured frantically for us to stop. Jessica was in the passenger seat, her face twisted into an expression I had never seen before, fear mixed with rage. "Keep driving," I whispered to Arthur. "Don't stop." My husband accelerated, but our old car was no match for Michael's newer vehicle. He cut in front of us and slammed on the brakes, forcing Arthur to stop to avoid a collision. My God, what do we do now? Arthur looked desperate, still holding the phone. "Lock the doors," the dispatcher instructed. "Do not exit the vehicle." Michael got out of his car and ran to our window. His face was red, his eyes wild. He pounded on the glass with his fist. "Mom, what are you doing? Why did you turn around?" I squeezed Arthur's hand, searching for strength. "Don't open it," I begged. Michael kept pounding. "Mom, open this door. What happened?" I looked into the eyes of my only son, the boy I had rocked on nights he had a fever, who had cried in my lap when he experienced his first heartbreak, who gave me my only grandchild. Now, at 42 years old, he was willing to sacrifice his own parents to solve his financial problems. "We know what's in the bag, Michael," I said, loud enough for him to hear me through the glass. "We called the police." His face transformed. The rage gave way to shock, then panic. "You what? Are you crazy? This is going to destroy our lives?" "You were going to destroy ours, son," I replied, tears streaming down my face. "Why did you do this?" "We owe money to dangerous people, Mom. It was the only way. They were going to hurt Leo." Jessica appeared beside him, grabbing his arm. "Let's go, Michael. Now." Michael gave me one last look, a mixture of fear and betrayal in his eyes. "You've ruined everything, Mom." They ran back to their car and sped away, leaving tire marks on the asphalt. "They're fleeing," Arthur reported to the police. "Patrol cars are already on their way." "What is the description and license plate of the vehicle?" We provided the information, feeling as if each word was a knife in our own son's back. 15 minutes later, which felt like an eternity, 2 patrol cars pulled up beside us. We showed them the bag, told them the whole story. I cried uncontrollably as I explained how we had supported our son and his family for years, how we had recently set boundaries, how he had planned this reconciliation only to use us as drug couriers. "Ma'am, what you did today was very brave," said an older officer, his gaze understanding. "Unfortunately, we see many cases where criminals use elderly people and family members as mules precisely because they are rarely stopped at checkpoints. You probably saved your own lives today." I sat on the shoulder of the road, holding Arthur's hand as they took the bag and our statements. A female officer approached with a cup of water. "And my grandson?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Leo is only 10 years old. He was in the car with them. We have a bolo out for the vehicle now. If the child is with them when they are located, Child Protective Services will be activated to ensure his safety." End quote. Sitting there, in the middle of nowhere, between the open sky and the hot asphalt, I thought about all the times I had given in to Michael's requests. All the times I gave up my own needs to satisfy his. All the times I ignored the signs that something was wrong because I wanted to believe my son was still the person I raised him to be. "We're going to take you back home," the officer said. "We'll need you to be available in case we have more questions." On the way back, I sat in complete silence, staring out the window at the landscapes that had seemed so promising just hours before. Arthur held my hand, his thumb making small circles on my skin, the way he always did when I was distressed. "Did I do the right thing?" I finally asked, my voice breaking. "What if they hurt Leo? What if—" "Margaret," Arthur interrupted, his voice firm despite his teary eyes. "They put drugs in our bag. They were willing to let us go to prison. That isn't love, that isn't family. You did the only thing you could do." But that night, alone in the bed I had shared with Arthur for 45 years, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining where Leo was, if he was scared, if he would understand why his grandmother had betrayed his parents. The phone rang at 3:17 in the morning. I answered before the second ring. "Mrs. Margaret?" It was the officer's voice. "We found your son and his wife trying to cross the state line. They are in custody." "And my grandson?" I asked, my heart nearly beating out of my chest. "The boy is fine. He's with a social worker now. As the closest relatives, you have preference for temporary custody, if you'd like." I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Arthur and I sat on the small back porch, watching the stars fade as the day dawned. We didn't need to talk much. After 45 years together, our silences said more than words. "We're going to get Leo," I said finally, as the sun colored the horizon. "Are you sure, Margaret? Are we too old to take care of a 10-year-old? He looked at his calloused hands, hands that had worked hard his whole life. His eyes now showed the weight of an unthinkable betrayal. "What choice do we have? He's our grandson. I can't let him go to a shelter or a foster home. Not after all this." Arthur nodded slowly. "You've always had a heart bigger than the world." End of. At 8 o'clock in the morning, we were at the Child Protective Services office. The caseworker, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, received us in her small, stuffy office. "Leo is physically fine, but he's very scared and confused," she explained. "He doesn't understand why his parents were taken away by the police or why he can't go home." "What did you tell him?" I asked. "Only that there was a problem and we needed to find a safe place for him to stay for now. We think it's best if you explain it to him in a way you feel is appropriate." When Leo walked into the room, my heart ached. He looked so small, so vulnerable in his wrinkled Batman t-shirt and messy hair. His eyes, so much like his father's, were red and swollen. "Grandma?" His voice was just a whisper. "Where are my mom and dad?" I opened my arms and he ran to me, burying his face in my chest, just like he did when he was smaller. I felt his tears soaking my blouse. "We're going home, my love," I said softly, stroking his hair. "We'll go home and we can talk there, okay?" On the way to our house, Leo sat quietly in the back seat, clutching the school backpack the social worker had picked up from his house. Occasionally, our eyes met in the rearview mirror, and I tried to give him a comforting smile. At home, I made hot chocolate. It was always our family's comfort drink, and the three of us sat at the kitchen table. "Leo," I began, choosing my words carefully, "your parents did something wrong, something against the law, and because of that, they're going to need to be away for a while." His eyes widened. "Are they bad guys?" The innocent, direct question hit me like a punch. How could I explain to a child that his parents weren't monsters, but desperate people who made terrible choices? "No, my love. They are people who made a mistake. Good people sometimes do bad things when they're scared or desperate." "Ida." "It was about money, wasn't it?" Leo asked, surprising me with his perception. "They fought about money a lot. My mom always said that if you helped more, we wouldn't be in this situation." I felt like I had been slapped. Was that how Jessica portrayed me to her own son? As a stingy grandmother who refused to help enough? "Leo, Grandma, and Grandpa helped your parents for many years," Arthur explained, his voice gentle but firm. "We gave them a lot of money, more than we could afford, actually. But sometimes, no matter how much you give, it's never enough if the person doesn't know how to manage it." Leo stirred his spoon in his hot chocolate, creating little whirlpools. "I know. I heard them arguing sometimes. Dad would say it was just one more loan, and Mom would say you owed it to them for being your only son. Every word from Leo was a painful revelation of how we were seen by my son's family, not as generous people who sacrificed their own financial security, but as a bank that never closed, a resource to be exploited. "So, how long do I have to stay here?" he asked, changing the subject. "The lady from CPS said it could be a long time, that it will depend on the judge." He looked up, suddenly alarmed. "Are you going to send me away too?" "Never," I replied firmly, reaching out to hold his hand. "This is your home now, for as long as you need it." In the following days, we established a new routine. We enrolled Leo in the public school near our house, the same one where Arthur had been the janitor before he retired. We bought new school supplies, some clothes, and tried to create an atmosphere of normalcy in the middle of the chaos our lives had become. A week after Michael and Jessica's arrest, we received a visit from a lawyer. "They want to see you," he said, sitting in our living room. "They're being held in pretrial detention while the case moves forward." "And what do they have to say?" Arthur asked, his voice harder than I had ever heard it. "They claim they were forced by drug traffickers, that they were being threatened and saw no alternative. They are asking you to pay for their defense." I let out a bitter laugh that I didn't recognize as my own. After everything they did, after trying to turn us into criminals, they still think they can ask us for money? The lawyer looked uncomfortable. "They also mentioned that if you don't help, they might claim that you knew about the drugs, that it was a joint plan." Arthur shot up so fast his chair almost fell over. "Get out of our house. Now," he ordered, pointing to the door. "And you tell my son that if he dares to accuse us, I will testify against him myself. Tell him we have the recordings of the calls to the police, that we have witnesses, that we discovered the drugs and immediately asked for help. Tell him we are not the idiots he thought we were." After the lawyer left, Arthur sat heavily on the sofa, covering his face with his hands. It was one of the few times I had seen him cry in all our years together. "Arthur," I whispered, sitting beside him, "do you think we did something wrong raising him? How did our son become this person?" He shook his head slowly. "I don't know, Margaret. Maybe we gave too much. Maybe he never learned that actions have consequences because we were always there to fix everything." That night, while Leo slept in the room that had once been his father's, Arthur and I made a pact. We would not let our grandson grow up with the same sense of entitlement that had corrupted Michael. We would teach him responsibility, hard work, and above all, integrity. The next morning, I received a call from the jail. It was Michael. "Hello?" My voice came out hesitant, unsure. "Mom." Michael's voice sounded different over the jail phone, harder, colder. I remained silent, not knowing what to say to the son who had tried to use me as a drug mule. "You destroyed our lives," he continued when he realized I wasn't going to speak. "Do you know what happens to people like me in jail? Do you know how long I could be in here?" I felt my knees buckle and sat down in the nearest chair. It was surreal to hear my son, the child I raised, blaming me for suffering the consequences of his own actions. "Michael," I finally managed to say, "you put illegal drugs in our bag without our knowledge. You and Jessica planned to use your own parents as drug couriers, and now you blame me for calling the police?" "It was our only chance, Mom. We owe money to dangerous people. They were going to hurt Leo. After you refused to pay for his school?" "Don't you dare," I interrupted, my voice trembling with rage. "Don't you dare use your son as an excuse. We helped you for 6 years. 6 years. We gave money we didn't even have to support a lifestyle you couldn't afford. And when we finally said no to an expensive private school, you decide to turn us into criminals?" There was a silence on the other end of the line. "How's Leo?" he finally asked, his voice suddenly smaller. "He's with us. He's safe. He's in school. And for the first time in a long time, he's in a home where he doesn't have to hear constant arguments about money. I want to talk to him." "That's not up to me anymore, Michael. There's a legal process now. The judge will determine when and how you can have contact." I heard a heavy sigh. "Mom, please, you need to help us. You need to pay for a good lawyer. For the family. For Leo." "No," I replied, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "It's over, Michael. The money is gone. The trust is gone. You crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. You're going to regret this," he said, and I could hear the anger rising again. When I get out of here. If you're threatening your own parents now, Michael, I suggest you think carefully. I cut in. Any threats will be reported immediately to the authorities. I am going to take care of Leo and give him the stability he deserves. That is my only responsibility now. I hung up the phone with shaking hands. Arthur, who had heard everything from the kitchen doorway, came over and hugged me in silence. We stood like that, two old people leaning on each other, trying to process how our only son had become a threatening stranger. The weeks turned into months. Life with Leo brought a new and surprisingly comforting routine. He went to school in the morning. I would pack his lunch and help him with his homework. In the afternoon, Arthur would take him to play soccer at the neighborhood park or ride his bike. At night, we sat down together for dinner, something that, as we discovered, rarely happened at his house. Leo told us he usually ate alone watching television while his parents argued in another room. "Grandma," Leo asked me one night as I was tucking him in, "why did my parents fight so much about money if you guys were helping them?" The question took me by surprise. Leo was much more perceptive than we had imagined. "Well, sweetheart, sometimes people want more than they can have. Your parents wanted a big house, new cars, trips, an expensive school for you, but they didn't have enough money for all of that. Grandpa and I helped a lot, but even so, it wasn't enough for the lifestyle they wanted." Leo became thoughtful. "At his house, my mom always said it was your fault for not helping more, that if you really loved us, you would give more money." Each revelation from Leo was like a small stab. It was painful to discover how Michael and Jessica had portrayed me to their own son, as a greedy villain. Not as the grandmother who had sacrificed her own financial security for them. "Leo, love is much more than giving money. It's being present, it's teaching what's right, it's setting limits when necessary. Sometimes, saying no is the hardest way to love someone." He nodded slowly. "Like when you don't let me eat chocolate before dinner because you're worried about my health?" I smiled. "Exactly like that." As the months passed, Leo blossomed. His grades improved. He made friends in the neighborhood, and gradually, the questions about when his parents would come back became less frequent. Not for lack of love, I realized, but because he was finally experiencing the stability every child deserves. The trial for Michael and Jessica was scheduled for 6 months after their arrest. As the main witnesses, Arthur and I would be called to testify. The thought of testifying against my own son made me physically ill, but I knew it was necessary. Not just for justice, but to show Leo that even painful decisions are necessary when it comes to doing what is right. A week before the trial, I received a letter from Jessica. It surprised me. She had never written to me before. With some apprehension, I opened the envelope. "Dear mother-in-law, I hope this letter finds you well. I know you probably hate me now, and you have every right. What we did was unforgivable. Using you and Arthur like that, I have no excuses. Prison gives you a lot of time to think. I've been thinking about all the times you helped us, and how I always wanted more. How I spoke badly of you to Leo. How I manipulated Michael into asking for more and more. The truth is, I never learned to live within our means. I always believed I deserved more than I had. And when you and Arthur were there, ready to cover our debts, it was easy to keep going like that. I'm not asking for forgiveness, or for money for lawyers. I just wanted you to know that, despite everything, I am grateful that you are taking care of my son. He deserves better than the parents he has. Jessica." I reread the letter several times, trying to find the manipulation between the lines, but for the first time since I met Jessica, her words seemed sincere. I showed the letter to Arthur, who read it in silence. "What do you think?" I asked. He sighed deeply. "I think prison can change people. Some for the worse, others, maybe for the better." "Do you believe her?" "I don't know, Margaret, but I think it's the closest thing to an apology we're going to get." On the day of the trial, I put on my best dress, not out of vanity, but out of respect for the solemnity of the moment. Leo stayed with our neighbor. We decided he didn't need to go through the trauma of seeing his parents in court. The courtroom was surprisingly full. Apparently, the case of elderly parents being used as mules by their own children had attracted the attention of the local media. I sat next to Arthur in the front row. my fingers intertwined with his, seeking strength. When Michael and Jessica entered, handcuffed and wearing prison uniforms, my heart sank. Michael looked like he had aged 10 years in 6 months. He was thinner, with deep dark circles under his eyes and a beard he had never had before. Our eyes met for a second before he looked away, unable to face me. Jessica, on the other hand, looked directly at me and nodded slightly, as if acknowledging my presence. There was something different about her, a humility that had never existed before. The trial began with the charges being read: drug trafficking, attempting to use third parties without consent for the transport of illegal substances, criminal conspiracy. Every word was like a stab. When I was called to testify, my legs trembled so much I had to hold on to the railing to get to the witness stand. The prosecutor asked me questions about the years of financial support, about the recent refusal of the tuition money, about the strange reconciliation and the invitation for the trip. "Mrs. Margaret," the prosecutor asked, "when exactly did you realize something was wrong?" I swallowed hard, glancing briefly at my son before answering. It was when Michael called during the trip to ask about the bag. He never, in his entire adult life, ended a call by saying he loved me. That wasn't normal. I felt that something was terribly wrong. "And what did you do then?" My voice failed. I asked my husband to pull over the car. I opened the bag and found the packages hidden among my grandson's clothes. Packages of drugs. "And what was your reaction upon discovering this?" My voice failed again. I told my husband to call the police. I knew I was reporting my own son, but they were willing to let us go to prison in their place. What choice did I have? The defense attorney, a young man in a cheap suit, stood up for cross-examination. "Mrs. Margaret, you claim that you supported your son and his family for years. Are you aware that by doing this, you may have created a financial dependency that led them to take desperate measures when you suddenly cut off that support?" I felt the blood rush to my face. I did not suddenly cut off support. I said no to a specific request, an expensive private school, after 6 years of paying practically all their expenses. And even if I had cut everything off at once, does that justify turning their own parents into unwilling drug traffickers? The lawyer recoiled slightly at my indignation. "I am not suggesting a justification, ma'am. I am merely establishing the context of the situation." "The context?" I replied, my voice firmer now. "Is that 2 40-year-old adults decided that the solution to their financial problems was to sacrifice their elderly parents?" After my testimony, it was Arthur's turn. He told his version with the same dignified calm he always showed in moments of crisis. When he finished, the judge called Michael and Jessica to testify. Michael went up to the witness stand first. He couldn't look at me as he spoke. "We were desperate," he began. "We owed money to dangerous people who threatened to hurt our son. When my mother refused to pay for the private school, we realized that she had finally set a limit, that we could no longer count on her financially. And that justified putting drugs in her bag without her knowledge?" the prosecutor asked. Michael finally looked at me, his eyes filled with tears. "No, nothing justifies what we did. I betrayed the people who were always there for me. I deserved to be arrested just for that." The sincerity in his voice surprised me. It didn't seem rehearsed or manipulative. Jessica testified next. She confirmed everything Michael had said, but she went further. "It was my idea," she admitted, leaving the court in silence. Michael hesitated, but I insisted. I said his parents were old, that no one would suspect them, that it was our only way out. I manipulated my husband in the same way I manipulated my in-laws for years. The trial lasted 3 days. On the final day, after the closing arguments, the judge announced his decision. "Michael and Jessica Carballo, this court finds you guilty of all charges. However, considering the lack of a criminal record, the spontaneous confession, and the apparent remorse, I sentence you both to 4 years in prison, with the possibility of parole to a work release program after serving 1/3 of the sentence." 4 years. My son would spend 4 years in prison for something he himself had chosen to do. Leo would grow up during those years without his parents, and I, a 67-year-old grandmother, would be responsible for raising a preteen. After the trial, Michael's lawyer asked if we would like to speak with him briefly before he was taken back to prison. I looked at Arthur, who nodded slightly. In a small room next to the courtroom, we found Michael, still in handcuffs, but without the presence of the guards inside the room. "Mom," he began as soon as we entered, his voice choked with emotion. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. What we did is inexcusable." "Why, Michael?" I asked, the question that had tormented me for months. "Why would you do something like that to us after everything we did for you?" He lowered his head. "Because for years, you were always there to clean up my messes. Whenever I made a mistake, you fixed it. I think I never really grew up. I never learned to deal with the consequences of my own mistakes." "And now?" Arthur asked, his voice calm but firm. "Now?" Michael took a deep breath. "Now I want you to take better care of Leo than I ever did. I don't want him to grow up like me, believing the world owes him something." "His custody will still be decided by the judge," Arthur said. "I know, and I'm going to recommend that he stay with you. Leo needs stability. Better role models than Jessica and I were." Those words, coming from my son, took me completely by surprise. For the first time since that hell began, I saw a glimpse of the boy I had raised. A glimpse of integrity and responsibility. "I'm going to try to be a better person when I get out of here," he continued. "Someone you and Leo can respect again." When the guard came to get Michael, I did something I hadn't planned. I hugged my son. It was a quick hug, still laden with pain and distrust, but also with a small hope that maybe something good could come out of this whole disaster. On the way home, Arthur and I remained silent for a long time. "Do you think he's really changed?" I finally asked. Arthur considered for a moment. "I don't know. Prison changes people, but not always for the better. I think only time will tell. And us? What happens now?" He took my hand from the car seat. "Now we raise our grandson. We give him what he needs, not necessarily what he wants. We teach values, responsibility, integrity, and we pray we do a better job this time." When we got home, Leo ran to greet us, anxious for news. "What happened? When are Mom and Dad coming back?" We sat down with him in the living room and explained, as gently as possible, that his parents would be away for a few years, that he would live with us during that time. "Are they really going to jail?" he asked, his voice small. "Yes, sweetheart. They did something wrong, and now they need to face the consequences." Leo was silent for a moment, processing the information. "Can I visit them?" "That will depend on the family court judge, but probably yes, with some limits." He nodded, surprisingly composed for a boy his age. "Okay, I understand." That night, as I was making Leo's bed, he asked me a question that would stay with me for a long time. "Grandma, do you still love Dad even after what he did?" The question caught me off guard. How could I explain to a 10-year-old the complexity of a mother's love? How could I say that it's possible to love a person deeply and at the same time be devastated by their choices? "Leo," I began, sitting on the edge of the bed. "A mother's love is complicated. I love your father, yes. I will love him forever, because he is my son, but that doesn't mean I accept or approve of what he did. Loving someone isn't giving them a free pass to do bad things." Leo thought for a moment, clutching his worn teddy bear. "Like when you love me, but you put me in time, out if I do something wrong?" I laughed at the perfect simplicity of his analogy. "Exactly like that, sweetheart. I love you too much to let you grow up believing you can do anything without consequences. And will you love me even if I do something really, really bad one day? Like Dad did?" I felt my heart ache at the fear in his voice. "Always, Leo, always. Nothing in the world could change that." He nodded, seeming satisfied. "Then I guess it's okay that Dad is in jail, as long as you still love him." The following weeks were dedicated to establishing a new normal. The social worker visited regularly to check on how Leo was adapting. The family court judge determined that for now, Arthur and I would have provisional custody, with the first visit to his parents scheduled for 2 months after the start of their sentence. On the day of the visit, Leo was nervous, changing his clothes 3 times before settling on a superhero t-shirt Michael had given him for his last birthday. "Do you think they'll be happy to see me?" he asked, as I combed his unruly hair. "It will be the best part of their last few months," I answered honestly. The correctional facility was a cold, intimidating place, even for a visit. Leo squeezed my hand tightly as we passed through the metal detectors and security procedures. The visitation room had concrete tables fixed to the floor and hard plastic chairs. Michael entered first. He was wearing the orange prison uniform and looked even thinner than at the trial. His eyes lit up when he saw Leo, and for a moment I could see the boy he had once been, before life and bad choices transformed him. "Dad!" Leo cried out and opened his arms. Michael hesitated for only a second before running to his son, wrapping him in a tight hug. I felt tears in my eyes watching the reunion. No matter how many mistakes Michael had made, he was and always would be Leo's father. Jessica came in right after. She was different. Her hair, once carefully dyed and styled, now showed gray roots. Her face, without the makeup I had never seen her without, looked older and more tired. But when she saw Leo, her smile was genuine. I sat at a nearby table, giving them some privacy, as Leo talked animatedly about his new school, the friends he had made. The dog Arthur was considering adopting for him. "Grandma helps me with my homework every day," I heard Leo say, "and Grandpa is teaching me how to play chess. They said when I'm good enough, we're going to a tournament." Michael looked at me over Leo's head, his eyes communicating a silent gratitude that words could not express. After almost an hour, a guard announced that the visit was ending. Michael hugged Leo for a long time. "Be good for your grandparents," he said. "Listen to what they say. They're wiser than I ever was." "When are you coming home, Dad?" Leo asked, the question I knew he had been holding back. Michael looked at me again before answering. "It's going to be a while, son, but when I come back, I'm going to be a better father. I promise." As Leo said goodbye to Jessica, Michael approached me. "Mom," he said quietly, "I know I don't deserve to ask for anything, but please, don't let him forget me. Don't let him think I don't care." "I would never do that, Michael. He will always know that you love him." Michael nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you. For everything. For taking care of him. For not letting him go to a shelter or foster family." "He's my grandson," I replied simply. "And you, with all your mistakes, are still my son." On the way home, Leo was unusually quiet. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" I asked, watching him in the rearview mirror. "They seem different," he finally said. "Different how?" "Smaller. Dad always seemed so big. And Mom was always dressed up, with makeup and her nails done. Now they just look like normal people." I understood what he meant. For a child, parents are almost mythological figures, larger than life, infallible. Seeing Michael and Jessica in prison, vulnerable and diminished, must have been a shock to Leo's perception of them. "They are learning some hard lessons," I explained. "Sometimes we need to lose everything to realize what really matters." "Like what?" "Like family, like being honest, like taking responsibility for our mistakes instead of trying to make other people pay for them." Leo was silent for the rest of the way, lost in thoughts I could only imagine. The months turned into a year. The bi-monthly visits to the prison became part of our routine. Leo adapted surprisingly well to his new life. His grades were excellent. He had friends, played soccer on Saturdays on a local team that Arthur started coaching voluntarily. The social worker who visited us regularly commented on how Leo seemed happier and more secure than when she first met him. "You're doing an incredible job," she said during one of her visits. "It's not common to see children adapt so well after a trauma like this." "He's strong," I replied, "stronger than I was at his age." Michael and Jessica, meanwhile, seemed to be changing in prison. Michael got a job in the prison library and began studying to finish his college degree through a distance learning program. Jessica got involved in a crafts program and even started teaching sewing classes to other inmates. During visits, they always asked about Leo's school, his activities, his development. They seemed genuinely interested in his life, not just concerned with when they could get their own back. On one of the visits, about a year and a half after their arrest, Michael asked to speak to me alone for a few minutes. "Mom, I've been thinking a lot," he began, his tone more serious than usual. "When I get out of here, I don't want you and Dad to support us again." I raised my eyebrows, surprised by the statement. "I want to do things the right way this time," he continued. "I'm studying. I got a qualification in accounting. I'm going to get a job, live within our means." No cars we can't afford, no expensive private schools. That's good to hear, son. And I want you to promise me one thing, he said, leaning forward. If I go back to my old habits, if I start asking for money or trying to manipulate you, say no, immediately, no matter what excuse I give you. The sincerity in his eyes moved me. It was the first real sign that Michael was genuinely committed to changing. I promise, I replied. But I hope I won't need to keep that promise. He smiled, a sad but honest smile. Me too, Mom. Me too. That night, I told Arthur about the conversation as we washed the dinner dishes. Leo was already in bed, exhausted after a day at the water park. Do you believe him? Arthur asked, drying a plate. I want to believe him, I replied honestly. But I know that real changes take time and that good intentions in prison are different from facing temptations in the real world. Arthur nodded. You know what worries me most? What it will be like for Leo when they get out. He's so well adjusted here with us. The transition is going to be difficult. It was a concern I also had. Leo, now almost 12, was thriving under our care. The idea of disrupting that stability distressed me. One day at a time, I said, repeating the mantra that had sustained us during that turbulent period. One day at a time. Leo's 12th birthday arrived on a sunny Saturday in September. We threw a small party in the backyard. Nothing extravagant, just a few friends from school, a homemade cake he helped me bake, and a table of simple snacks. The difference from the elaborate parties Michael and Jessica used to throw was noticeable. Are you sure you don't need help with the party costs? The social worker had asked during her monthly visit, clearly concerned about our limited retirement budget. We're fine, Arthur replied with a smile. We've discovered that children need more attention than expensive parties. It was true. Leo, who used to have themed parties in rented halls, with expensive gifts and professional decorations, seemed happier with our simple homemade celebration than I had ever seen him at previous parties. Maybe because now he was truly involved in everything, from choosing the cake flavor to helping inflate the balloons. This is the best birthday I've ever had, Grandma, he told me, as we hung up streamers together. Even without the bounce house and the cotton candy machine? I asked, half joking, half serious. That stuff was fun, he shrugged, but I barely saw my parents during the parties. They were always busy greeting guests or arguing about something that wasn't how my mom wanted it. The wisdom of that child sometimes surprised me. At only 12 years old, Leo had already learned lessons about values and priorities that his parents took decades to begin to understand, and even then, they needed a prison for it. Leo's big gift was a new bike, not the latest model, but a good quality one that Arthur had restored from a used bike we found at a second-hand shop. Together they had sanded, painted, and repaired that bike for weeks, turning the project into a grandfather-grandson activity that created more memories than any store-bought gift could. In the middle of the party, while the kids were playing soccer in the backyard, my cell phone rang. It was the prison's number. Michael had received special permission to call on his son's birthday. Mom, is Leo nearby? Yes, Michael. Do you want to talk to him? Please. I called Leo over, who came running, his face red from exertion and smiling from ear to ear. It's your dad, I said, handing him the phone. Leo chatted animatedly for a few minutes, describing the party, the friends, the bike his grandpa had fixed up for him. Yeah, Dad, I'm really liking it, he said in response to something Michael asked. Grandma and Grandpa said maybe we can go fishing next holiday at their neighbor's farm. When the call ended, Leo handed me back the phone. Dad wants to talk to you again. Thanks, Mom, Michael said when I took the phone, for giving him a normal happy birthday. It's not the party you and Jessica would have thrown, but it's exactly what he needs, Michael. Simple things made with love. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I don't know how to thank you for everything you're doing. Just keep studying, keep getting better. That's the best thanks you can give us. Mom, there's something else. I've applied for the work release program. The lawyers think I have a good chance, with good behavior and the courses I've taken here. I felt a knot in my chest. A work release program meant Michael would be out of prison during the day, returning only to sleep. It was the first step toward his full release, which was scheduled for just over a year away, with reductions for good behavior. That's good, son, I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady. I know it's complicated, he continued, clearly sensing my hesitation. Leo is so settled with you now. I don't want to mess that up, but I want to start being a part of his life again, slowly. Of course, I replied automatically, while my mind spun with the implications. We'll talk about it on the next visit. After I hung up, Arthur noticed my worried expression. What happened, Margaret? I told him about Michael's request for the work release program. Arthur was silent for a moment, thoughtful. It was to be expected, he finally said. We couldn't keep him away forever. He's the boy's father, after all. I know. It's just, Leo is doing so well, so balanced. I'm afraid everything will be destabilized when Michael starts coming back into his life. Arthur took my hand. We can't control that, dear. We can only do our best and be there for Leo, no matter what happens. 2 weeks later, we got the news. Michael's request had been approved. Starting next month, he would be on a work release program, working during the day at a cooperative that employed ex-convicts and returning to the prison only to sleep. We sat down with Leo to explain what that meant. Your dad will be able to see you more often now, Arthur explained. You'll be able to spend a few hours together on weekends, maybe even go out for ice cream or to the park. Leo's eyes lit up. Will he be able to see my soccer games? Probably, if it's during his permitted hours. And my mom? Your mother is still in the main facility, I explained. You'll still visit her every 2 weeks, just like always. Leo nodded, absorbing the information. And where will I live? Still with you, right? The worry in his voice was evident. After almost 2 years living with us, our house had become his safe harbor. Yes, sweetheart, I assured him. You'll still live here for now. When your father is fully released, then the judge will decide on the new arrangements, but that's still a little while away. What if I want to keep living here even after? The question hung in the air, heavy with its implications. Arthur and I exchanged glances. That's something we'll have to discuss with your father when the time comes, Arthur said carefully. But remember that your father loves you very much and also wants what's best for you. End. The first meeting between Leo and Michael outside the prison took place on a Saturday. Michael, still wearing an electronic ankle monitor, looked uncomfortable in his civilian clothes, as if he had forgotten how to dress like a normal person. We agreed to meet at a park near our house. I stayed at a distance, giving them privacy but keeping them in my sight. I saw Michael hug Leo for a long time. I saw them talking as they walked through the park. I saw Michael cheer enthusiastically as Leo showed off some soccer moves. It seemed so normal, as if those 2 years of separation had never happened, as if Michael hadn't tried to turn his own parents into drug traffickers. When the allotted time was up and Michael had to return, Leo came back to me with a smile I hadn't seen in a long time. Dad said he's managing to save money at his new job, he said excitedly. He said that when he gets out for good, he's going to rent a small apartment but with a room just for me. I forced a smile. That's great, Leo. He asked me if I want to live with him when he gets out. My heart sank. And what did you tell him? Leo looked at me, suddenly serious. I said I like living with Grandma and Grandpa, that I don't want to change schools or leave my friends. I felt a guilty relief. On one hand, I was glad that Leo felt so good with us that he didn't want to leave. On the other, I knew that would break Michael's heart. What did he say? He seemed sad, but then he said he understands, that maybe I can spend weekends with him, or holidays, that the important thing is that I'm happy and safe. Those words surprised me. The old Michael would have insisted, maybe even tried to make Leo feel guilty. This new Michael, who accepted his son's preference and prioritized his well-being over his own desires, was a significant change. That night, I received a text message from an unknown number. Mom, it's Michael, from the co-op. Thanks for bringing Leo today. I know it's not easy for you to see me coming back into your life, but I promise I'll do everything differently this time. P.S. Leo is an incredible kid. You've done a much better job than I ever did. I showed the message to Arthur, who read it in silence. What do you think? I asked. Arthur sighed deeply. I think that, maybe, he really is changing. The following months created a new routine. Leo continued to live with us, going to school, playing on the soccer team. On Saturdays, he would spend a few hours with Michael, sometimes at the park, sometimes at a coffee shop, occasionally at school events where Michael could attend with special permission. On Sundays, we alternated between days at home and visits to Jessica in prison. It was a delicate balance, but somehow it was working. Leo seemed happy with the arrangement, having the stability of our home and the gradual reconnection with his father. Michael, for his part, seemed to be taking his promise of change seriously. He worked consistently at the cooperative, continued his studies, and most importantly, never asked us for money. One Sunday morning, while Leo was still asleep, Arthur and I were having coffee on the porch, enjoying the morning coolness. "Have you thought about what will happen when Michael is fully released?" Arthur asked, breaking our comfortable silence. The question had been hanging over us for months, but we always avoided addressing it directly. "I think about it every day," I confessed. "It's only 4 months away now." "And what do you think will happen?" I sighed deeply. "Honestly, I don't know. Leo has made it clear he wants to keep living with us, at least for now, but legally, Michael is his father. If he wants full custody, do you think he would do that? Force Leo to go against his will?" I shook my head slowly. "The old Michael? Definitely. This new Michael? I'm not so sure." Our reflections were interrupted by the ringing of the phone. It was Sunday morning. Who could be calling so early? "Hello?" I answered, a slight premonition bothering me. "Mrs. Margaret?" It was a male voice I didn't immediately recognize. "This is Marcus, the supervisor at the cooperative where your son works." My heart sped up. "Did something happen to Michael?" "He asked me to call. There was an incident last night. He's at the county hospital." "Hospital!" I exclaimed, making Arthur turn sharply toward me. "What happened? Is he okay?" "He was attacked on his way back to the housing last night. Apparently, some old associates weren't happy with his refusal to go back to work with them after his release." "Oh my God," I whispered. "Is it serious?" "Some broken ribs, a deep cut on his arm, a concussion. But he's going to survive. He's asking to see you and Leo. The prison administration has authorized the hospital visit." I hung up the phone and quickly explained the situation to Arthur. We decided not to tell Leo all the details, just that his father had been hurt and was in the hospital. The public hospital was crowded that Sunday. We made our way down the busy hallway to Michael's bed. The sight of him shocked me. His face was swollen and bruised, one eye completely swollen shut, his arm bandaged and in a sling. "Mom," he mumbled when he saw me, his voice hoarse. "You came." "Of course I came, son." Leo ran to the edge of the bed, his eyes wide with worry. "Dad, what happened? Did you fall?" Michael tried to smile, but the contusion on his face turned the expression into a grimace. "Something like that, champ. But don't worry, your dad is tough. I'll be fine soon." All. After Arthur took Leo to get something from the cafeteria, Michael held my hand. "It was them from my past," he said quietly. "The ones I owed money to, the same ones who put us in that situation with the bag. They came after you after all this time?" Michael nodded slightly. "They've been pressuring me for weeks. They wanted me to go back to work for them when I get out. Distribution, they call it. Drug trafficking is the real name." "And you refused?" "I refused," he confirmed, a slight pride in his voice despite the pain. "I told them I was out of that life, that I had a son to raise, a clean future to build." I looked at my son, lying in that hospital bed, hurt for having made the right choice for the first time in so long. I felt a pride I hadn't felt in years. "They said they'll be back," Michael continued, his voice now a tense whisper. "That they'll come after me, and if necessary, after Leo." I felt my blood run cold. "After Leo?" "Mom," Michael squeezed my hand, his eyes intense despite the injuries. "I can't stay here. I can't put you or Leo at risk. When they release me, I have to leave. Far away, where they can't find me." "But what about Leo? Your plans to rent an apartment? To have a room for him?" "That's why I'm talking to you now," he replied, his voice choked with emotion. "Leo is happy and safe with you. He has school, friends, stability. To rip him away from all that for a life on the run from drug dealers." He shook his head. "What kind of father would I be?" What are you saying, Michael? I'm saying that when I get out, I'm leaving. Alone. I'm going to another state, to start over where no one knows me, and I want you and Dad to keep custody of Leo. The declaration took me completely by surprise. It was the opposite of what I had feared. Instead of fighting for custody, Michael was voluntarily giving up his son to keep him safe. Are you sure about that? He's your son. And because he's my son, I need to do what's best for him, not what's easiest for me. He swallowed hard, visibly emotional. It's what you did on that highway, Mom, when you found the drugs in the bag. You did what was necessary, not what was easy. Now it's my turn to do the same. When Arthur and Leo returned, we talked about trivial things. The soccer team, school, the new video game Leo had asked for Christmas, but my mind was spinning with the previous conversation. 2 days later, Michael was discharged and returned to the work release program, now with extra protection. In the following weeks, he began to prepare Leo for the idea that he would need to move when he was released. It's for work, son. I got a great opportunity in Denver. It's a new chance, a new life. But what about me? Leo asked, his voice small. Can't I go with you? I saw Michael's heart break with that question, but he held firm. Not right now, champ. You have school, friends. Your whole life is set up here. It wouldn't be fair to tear you away from all that. But I'll visit whenever I can. And when I'm well established, who knows? They both knew it was an empty promise, but it was easier than the brutal truth that Michael was leaving to protect his son from dangerous men who might use him to get to him. The day of Michael's release came on a rainy Tuesday in March. Arthur and I picked him up at the prison gates while Leo was at school, a decision made to ease the difficult goodbye. So, this is it, Michael said, standing on the sidewalk with a simple backpack containing all his belongings, starting from scratch at 44. You'll do fine, Arthur said, patting his shoulder. You're still young. You have your health. You're studying. A lot of people start over with less than that. Michael nodded. I know. I just wish I had realized this sooner, before I wasted so many years, before I almost sacrificed both of you for my irresponsibility. We took Michael to our house for one last family meal before his departure. The bus ticket to Denver was bought for that night. A friend from the cooperative had arranged a job and a place for him to stay there. Leo came home from school and spent the last precious hours with his father. They played video games, talked about soccer, made impossible plans about what they would do when they saw each other again. It was painful to watch, knowing it could be months, maybe years, before it would be safe for Michael to return. When it was time to leave, Michael hugged Leo for a long time. Be a good boy for your grandparents, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Study, be honest, work hard, be better than your father was. I will, Dad, I promise. Leo was crying openly now. But come back soon, okay? As soon as I can, champ. As soon as I can. Michael turned to me, his eyes red. Mom, I didn't let him finish. I hugged my son with all the strength I had. I know, Michael. I know. After the taxi took Michael to the bus station, I sat with Leo on the porch while he processed his father's departure. Arthur had gone to get ice cream, our tradition for difficult moments. Grandma, Leo said finally, Dad isn't coming back soon, is he? I looked at my grandson, now almost 13, more perceptive than we gave him credit for. Maybe not, sweetheart. He needs a new start, away from the bad influences of the past. Leo nodded slowly. It's because of those men who hurt him, right? I heard you guys talking in the hospital when you thought I was sleeping. I took a deep breath, surprised. Yes, Leo, your father is leaving to keep you safe. Instead of being angry at the truth, Leo seemed to accept it with a surprising maturity. So he's protecting us, like a hero. Yes, I replied, feeling tears in my eyes. Exactly like a hero. 3 months later, Jessica was also released to a work release program. Unlike Michael, she had no prior involvement with drug trafficking and was able to stay in the city. She started working in a textile factory and rented a small room. Leo visited her regularly, and she, unlike anything I could have expected, always respected our role as his primary guardians. I know Leo is better off with you, she told me once, as we waited for Leo to finish a soccer game. You gave him the stability Michael and I never managed to offer. A year passed. Michael called Leo regularly, sent occasional gifts on special occasions, but never returned to visit. Through video calls, we saw that he seemed to be thriving. He had gained weight, his face had color again, his eyes shone with a serenity he had never had before. On one of those calls, he asked to speak with me alone. "How are you, son?" I asked when Leo left the room. "Good, Mom, really good. Steady job. Small but decent apartment. I'm even dating someone." "That's wonderful, son." "And, is it safe now?" He sighed. "Not yet. Last week I heard they were still asking about me around there. It's better to stay away for now." I nodded, understanding the pain behind that continued decision. "Mom," he continued, "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For saying no that day. For pulling over the car. For calling the police." He smiled sadly. "It sounds crazy to thank someone for that, but if you had kept driving, if you had been caught with those drugs, not only would you be in prison, but I would have never changed. I would have continued in that life, making terrible decisions, until I ended up dead or in prison for something much worse." I felt the tears run down my face. I just did what any mother would do to protect her family. "No, Mom, you did what a wise mother would do. A mother who knows that loving isn't giving everything. It's not always saying yes. Sometimes, the deepest love is saying no. It's setting limits. Sometimes, it's letting a person face the consequences of their own mistakes." I too. Those words stayed with me in the following years. As Leo grew up, as Arthur and I grew older, as our family broken and patched up found its new normal. Leo is 17 now. Next year he will go to college, the first person in our family to do so. Michael is still in Denver. He built a new life. And although the distance remains, the bond with his son was never completely broken. Jessica, surprisingly, became a constant and positive presence, having learned to respect boundaries she once seemed incapable of recognizing. As for me, at 72 years old, I look back on that afternoon on the highway, the moment I screamed at Arthur to turn the car around, and I know it was the hardest and most important decision of my life. It was the moment I realized that loving doesn't mean allowing everything, that setting limits is not cruelty, and that sometimes saying no is the greatest gift we can give someone. When I opened that bag and saw what my son had hidden in it, my world fell apart. But from the ruins of that day, we built something new. An imperfect family, with scars, but stronger and more honest than we ever were before. As Leo recently said in a school essay about his family, sometimes we need to lose everything to find out what really matters. My father learned that the hard way, but thanks to my grandmother's courage, we all learned it too. Now, if you like this story, click on this next video that is appearing on the screen because in it there is a story of betrayal and revenge like you have never seen before.